After lunch, the next thing is the order of the day. So I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I'm going to change the order of the day. And we have a wonderful slideshow of many of the marshals in many of their different lives here at Beulah. So if you will direct your attention to the screen, and I'll be quiet.
Five,
4, 3, 2, 1. Last off.
-1.
Praise to the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, our God and our King. To Him we will sing. In His great mercy He has given us life. We call the children of God. Great is the love that the Father has given us. He has delivered us. He has delivered us. Children of God, sing your song and rejoice for the love that He has given us all. Judgment that we deserve, so we are called the children of God. Great is the love that the Father has given us. He has delivered us. He has delivered us. Children of God, sing your song and rejoice for the love that He has given us.
Light we must bear is the light we must share.
Ethan.
The light that illumines the darkness. The promises kept give us strength to accept this burden of bearing the light. He who walked beside us, a strong friend Barnabas. He will be that sure shoulder to lean on. The promise we share is our burden to bear, and our light tells the darkness to be gone. The light we must bear is the light we must bear, is the light that illumines the darkness. The promises kept give us strength to accept this burden of bearing the light. He will come after me, this young Timothy, looking for someone to guide him. I will kindle his light, make him strong for the fight. I will promise to be there beside him. The light we must share is the light that illumines Worship the Lord, for we are His people, the flock that He shepherds. Alleluia. Come, worship the Lord, for we are His people, the flock that He shepherds. Alleluia. Come, let us sing to the Lord and shout with joy to the rock who saves us. Let us come with thanksgiving and sing joyful songs to the Lord. Come, worship the Lord, for we are His people, the flock that He shepherds. The Lord is God, the mighty God, King of gods. He holds in His hands the depths of the earth and the highest mountains as well. He made the sea, it belongs now to Him. The dry land too was formed by His hand. And come, worship the Lord, for we are His people, the flock that He shepherds.
I'm convinced that this is one of the central messages of the Bible. It's in both the Old and the New Testament. That's why I like to teach on the Old Testament, to show that God's grace is throughout the Bible. But if I had to pick one passage on grace, I would pick our passage from Ephesians. By grace you have been saved through faith. Today is my last sermon here at Beulah. Didn't actually add them up, but in 9.5 years, I figured I'd preached between 100 and 120 sermons. Taught hundreds of different classes. If there was one message I hope that you have heard in 9.5 years, it's the message of grace. Think about it. You're alive today not because you deserve to be born. The talents and opportunities that have come your way are not something you deserve, they're a gift. God's love for you, God's salvation, is something you don't have to work for. In fact, sometimes you have received God's love in spite of what you have done. God's grace is overwhelming, furious, staggering, relentless, reckless, and stubborn. When you receive God's grace, you're simply called to say thank you, and then be gracious to someone else. It's all about God's amazing grace.
Can we say is the thank you. However, before we get into the many people who have things to say to you, I'd like you and Tanya to come on up to the stage. Great ladies. Have a seat. Those chairs are there just for the two of you.
We got the nice ones.
There was some planning that went into this.
Thanks.
Not for a while. All right, I'm going to turn my microphone over to Pastor Cynthia because she has some good words to say to you.
Today, I not only make my own remarks, but remarks on behalf of the staff, and some of them have contributed their ways of appreciating Doug and just delighting in his ministry with us as a staff. 1 Thessalonians 5:12-13. Now we ask you, brothers and sisters, to respect those who work hard among you, who are over you in the Lord and who admonish you. Hold them in the highest regard in love because of their work, and live in peace with each other. Doug, we hold you in the highest regard with love because of your work among us and with us, and because of your presence. You have been a strong pastoral presence for both the preschool staff and the church staff. During times of crisis, whether it be in the life of the church, or in the life of our nation, or world, or personal issues, your door has always been open to extend comfort and wisdom to those in need, and we thank you for that. You have also challenged us to grow. Doug is known for asking questions. He has a way of turning the question around back on the questioner. We thank you, Doug, for asking those deeper questions because they have forced us to look at ourselves in new ways and to look at what God was really saying to us through those circumstances. So we thank you for that. You have also modeled for us the creative power of the Holy Spirit, especially in worship. You challenged us to try new things, and to be true to joyful and Christ-centered worship. That is an important part of the ministry here at Beulah Church, and for that we thank you. You also have a sense of humor, and we all know that. Much needed laughter at times, and brought just a real sense of fun to our workplace. And I hope that all of you will share some of the funny stories about Doug. The one that I can remember is Doug was always known for leaving his Christmas decorations up way past December. Sometime into February, he might think about taking them down. And so one day, Libby Keebler decided to decorate his office for Christmas in a kind of permanent way. And wasn't it funny when Doug walked in the room the moment she was doing that? The look on each one of their faces was priceless. But we thank you, Doug, for all of those practical jokes and for also being on the receiving end of them as well. And finally, I want to thank you for being a colleague in ministry. Not just a work associate, but also a friend. And that's not always the case in a relationship between a pastor and an associate. And I am just very grateful for this time to have worked with you. So thank you, Doug, and thank you, Tanya. You have both been a tremendous blessing to me.
Thank you, Cynthia. Libby Keebler and Ethan Jelpy have some magic words to say to you, but I think they're both going to come up. No ladies first. Okay. All right, Ethan. He's all yours. Cool.
Hey guys. I don't have anything written down, but all I know is I have a big heart for this guy right here. And I want to start off by saying Uncle Dougie, Dougster, all those names I call you. I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done for not only me, but the whole youth group. Especially with everything going around with all the youth interns and everything after Chris and Tony left and then Amanda left, and we didn't know what to do. So you, I know as much as we love you, I know that you love us even more, and you stepped in for us, and that means a lot to all of us. I know that for a fact. I will never forget all the backpacking trips. You guys saw a couple pictures of the backpacking trips, and I'll never forget the first one. It was our first trip, and we were all so excited, and we all loved it, so we thought, okay, let's go next year. And we finally convinced Luke to go. And that happened to be the trip to Dolly Sods, and started off a good trip. And then every day since the first day, pretty much, it rained the whole time. And I have never seen a man walk probably, 8 miles with like a broken ankle with 90 pounds on his back, which is pretty awesome.
That picture up when I was sitting by the creek, I just groaned when I saw it. I was in agony at that point.
Oh yeah. There's just been so many good times with Doug, with youth group, from backpacking trips to shaving my head for the mission trip and having Tony nair his legs. All good times. But I know we haven't always agreed with each other with things, and we've got in arguments over the years, and although sometimes I didn't agree with you at that time, like whenever I said, Doug, why can't we play on top of the roof? Turns out he's actually looking out for the goodwill of the church. Who knew? But
that and the fact that I used to do that when I was raised.
But yeah, I know we've had our fights, but you've always been there to check in on me because you know that I got upset over something, and even though I was upset at times, you always either talked to me or messaged me on Facebook to check if I was alright. And I know that no matter what I go through, you'll always be there for me and the rest of the youth group. So I just want to extend my thanks, and I love you, Doug.
Love you.
It's all yours.
Thank you. I'm just going to go on record as saying I remember things very differently from the decorating of the office. I had it written down. During Doug's time here at Beulah, he shared many, many gifts and talents with all of us. Some of those talents were very obvious. Many of us were able to see those. Some of those were a little bit more hidden. But many, many gifts and talents. The first of which
Not hidden
was...
enough.
Yes. The first of which he shared a vision that he had for the adult Christian education program here at the church. He had seen it modeled somewhere else, and he felt that he could bring it here to Beulah and make it a strong program for all of us, which he did. And I thank you for that. But it's that ability to see something that's been somewhere else and bring it to this church to provide a strong program for us that I greatly appreciated. And that was one of the gifts I think that many of us were able to see because we were involved in all of that. Those of you who aren't here during the week aren't aware that many mornings Doug practices his guitar in his office. Now he says that this is because he's practicing, but I really think it's because he wanted to serenade all of us who were in the offices back there. He never played any heavy metal songs, but it was a fabulous time to listen to him sing and play. Doug showed his gift and talent for being daring when he was willing to take on leadership with the youth. Stories abound, and I'm surprised that Eden didn't tell them, of bodily noises with the boys, with collapsing air mattresses with Patrick. He never lost his positive outlook, which is funny, Ethan brought that story up. He never lost his positive outlook despite days and days of rain on that camping trip, which we heard about from Luke. And he even learned to knit on another trip. So brave would
Not
certainly describe Doug. Doug showed a different side to his personality, his crafty side, and his sneaky side, both times when I was on the church staff with him. He pulled practical jokes on innocent and unsuspecting co-workers.
Yeah, right.
For those of you who've been to his office, you know that on his door, he loves to cut out cartoons comic strips that he feels are enjoyable for everyone. So he's done that for years. So we just decided we would help him. And we got the funny papers and covered his entire door with the funny papers. Well, wasn't that funny? He enjoyed it. He's always a good one for a good practical joke. But that's when his great prowess for practical jokes came in. And when he would be at Beulah here during the week, he'd spent hours crumpling up newspapers. And then he'd put them in bags and put them down in the dungeon. Lots of time and effort went into this preparation. So one day, when I was leaving work, after a very hard day of work, very tired, I walked out to my minivan, and he had filled the entire minivan with newspapers. And the beauty was, at this point, Bill Drew was on staff, and out of the senior minister's office there's a window in the back. Every single church staff member was standing at the window watching whenever I went out to the minivan. So I'm like, ooh, that was very good. Very good. So then, of course, we had to fill his office with newspapers after that and duly give him a trophy for being the king of recycling. And the second time that I'm remembering a little differently, because I remember you standing there when that happened. Again, Doug really enjoyed keeping his Christmas decorations up a really, really long time. So Cindy McHugh was part of that as well, so let's not all blame it all on me. All of the church staff came together and said, wouldn't it be fun if we could help him out He loves to decorate his office and doesn't take the decorations down until March. So who cares if it's the summer? We'll decorate Christmas in July for Doug's office. So everybody brought in the most hideous decorations. It was fabulous.
I liked them.
Went to the dollar store and everything. Yeah, he's still using them, exactly. But we had worked on it all day long. Throughout the course of the day, everybody's putting stuff in the office. It's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's his day off. So he was not supposed to be in this church. And Tracy Bell was standing there, I was standing there, and you were standing there, Cynthia. And all of a sudden he comes around the corner. Oh my word, we screamed. And I said, okay, he got the last laugh. That was fabulous. So you didn't know that sneaky side of Doug Marshall. All kidding aside, one of the strongest gifts that Doug shared with us was his caring spirit. I have been blessed to be here with the preschool for a long time, and then also to have worked on the church staff 2 times. So I'm very well aware of the number of folks who come in during the course of the week who have a need for support, for pastoral help, just for love. And so I've seen the many families, the many individuals who have been touched by your caring spirit, Doug. My own situation was that I was on staff whenever my mom passed away, and got the phone call that morning that I needed to leave, and Doug helped me out that morning by making sure all the programs were in place and things that needed to happen. It happened to be a communion Sunday, so when I went to my parents' house, we were there, and all of a sudden, the doorbell rang. And here it was, Doug and Tanya, who brought communion to share with our family. That day, my mom did pass away, but I was touched by the fact that they showed that caring, having us not ever asked. They just knew, and they just came and showed that gift of ministry with us. We will definitely miss Doug's many gifts and talents, but be aware, if you experience a good practical joke one day, you will know without a doubt that Doug is not far off.
I just want to say one more thing. I would like to note at how well Doug controls his temper with us. Because over the years, there's been many times where, let's say I've kicked a basketball and broke a window in the gym, or Pat got pushed into a window and it broke and he didn't get mad at us. That was when Brett was around, I think. But all those times, I'm very surprised that he hasn't killed any of us. How many things we've broken in this church. But yeah, I just thought I'd say that. Thanks.
It was about 9.5 years ago that I came to Beulah, but it was only a week after Doug came to Beulah. And I've been following him through a lot of ups and downs throughout the 9.5 years. One of the great ups, thank you, Doug performed my wedding. Interesting counseling. He told me it was one of the most difficult counseling sessions he'd ever had when Jim and I walked into his office and said, "We want you to marry us." I said, "Oh." It was sort of like, now what? So we figured out the now whats went on, and it was a great time. And yes, his humor is always felt because my late husband did have a sense of humor, and he said to Doug right before he started the wedding service, "We're going to add some humor." But he didn't tell him what he was going to do. And we did add some humor, and it was a wonderful time. And thank you, thank you, thank you. At this point, before I ask Stacy to come up, I'd like to have an open mic time for anyone here in the audience who'd like to talk to Doug and Tanya, or Brian. Brian can take it on for his sisters as well.
Back there. when we had been members for less than a year, Christy's father got real sick, and the pastor he came down and said a prayer over him, but it was more along the lines of, well, let's hope you get better kind of prayer. And it really upset Christy's mom, and so Christy reached out to Doug, and you know, we told him that we needed help. He was there in a heartbeat, and he said a wonderful prayer and sat with us for at least an hour, and just really was there for us. You know, we were still newer members, and we just remember that, you know, along with all the great times like at the getaways, but you know, that's the kind of person he is, that, you know, without a second thought, he's there and he's going to help take care of you and just take care of people. We'll miss you.
One year when we were on the backpacking trip.
Stand up, Justin. Come on.
I remember that, like, I kept, like, falling into places over and over again, and everybody just, like, started laughing, and it was a good time. And I remember when Alex got so irritated on the backpacking trip at his brother and everybody. So we'll miss you, Doug.
You guys have both been a great blessing to Beulah and to our family. And for all that you've done for the youth over the years, Doug, specifically, I think there's a lot of times that it has just been taken for granted, and the thank yous haven't been given as generously as they've been deserved. And for Tanya and your leadership with the women's Bible studies and your extreme faith and just, you know, supportive, kind words that you have, it's going to be missed. We love you guys, and we wish you the best, but it's definitely a loss for us.
Hello, Doug, Tanya, family. I enjoyed your ministry immensely, Doug, here. I kind of reviewed mine. Now I'm a retired Presbyterian minister, but I kind of reviewed my ministry to you. And early on, I discovered a great gift God has given you and still gives you, and it's that of prayer. You are marvelous in leading the congregation in prayers. I discovered that early on. Sometimes good pastoral prayer is even more effective than a sermon. Now, you took one step further. You did something I've never done. And you're at your best. When some prayer times, you just give a prayer. But there are other times when you stepped out in the congregation and went to this person and that person, whoever had a prayer concern, raised your hand, and then immediately you gave a prayer in response to that request. That is so moving. It's ministry at its best. God bless you, Doug.
Thank you.
Doug, I was already gone from the youth group when you came along in full adulthood, and I have enjoyed hearing your sermons and your prayers, and I've always known you had a sense of I gave no thought to it. I do it up until now, like you've said, and I remember one time. I remember one time I was in Forbes Outreach with some infection, and before you came in, the hospital chaplain I came in, and still a prayer. Then you came walking in, and we had a full conversation with me in the hospital bed. I'm thinking, wow, Doug also took the time to come out and see where I was at. So, Doug, good luck at your new church, and I miss you here.
Doug, we just thank you so much for everything, and for Tanya too. You were really one of the, I can't ever talk without crying. You were probably one of the most influential people in my feeling comfortable in a church. And so thank you for that. And you've just impacted our family so much.
You're making me run all over the place.
You need some exercise, Tom.
One car needs to follow another, right? Doug and Tanya, you guys have been like family. Over the years, you've really come alongside our family to help us raise our kids. These are tears of joy, and we are going to miss you, but the tears aren't mainly for selfish reasons. Like, you know, we cry because we love you and we want the best for you too. But I just want to thank you for, you know, everything that you've challenged me, even in youth sermons. Not a teacher, but yet you had that way of rallying me up to be able to teach these kids. That's really helped me to grow. The kids were just so young when you guys came on. I just feel like your family, and you just truly have been a blessing throughout our lives, helped us grow spiritually. And Tanya, the Bible studies have been wonderful. That Bethel Park series that you've taken us through the years, and that's helped me grow a lot too. So, I mean, I'm speaking for like my whole family, and Jeremy, who can't be here to speak. We're just very, very blessed and honored to have you in our lives.
Right. As a fellow PK, I admire your willingness to step outside the boundaries of how PKs are supposed to behave. I really love that picture of you in the front.
I didn't even have to say that out loud.
Hey, it's been 5 years. Uh-oh. Come on now. The Browns and the Steelers made a trade yesterday. The world is changing. And you didn't expect I was driving 80-some miles to not say something. And the stupid tunnel was closed on the way in. Come on now. So,
we forgot to tell you so you wouldn't come.
Exactly.
We're hoping to keep you out.
Oh. Beulah, thanks. It's lovely to be back. Wow. So, for those of you who knew Bill Drew and Doug, and by the way, I'm speaking on behalf of all the former staff people. You all don't pay my salary anymore, so I can say whatever I want. So, when you work for Bill and Doug, there are huge differences between the two of them. When I was interviewing, I spent time with Doug. I had a 3-second phone call with Bill Drew. My first week here on the job, Doug took me out to lunch. We went to Panera. And when you go out to lunch with Doug, well, that's my first week. You gotta try to impress the boss. Doug got a half of a sandwich and a little cup of water. That's not how I eat. But I did it because he was my boss. Drew took me out to lunch and we went to the Chinese buffet. That's what I'm talking about. We ate a lot and we drank a lot of pop and it was crazy. The times we had on the back hallway, I'm not looking at Doug because I'll cry. The times we had on the back hallway were ridiculous. It was so much fun to work here. Doug, he is funny and everything, but he is the calming influence, especially on me. As you can tell, I'm a little excitable. And one of the best things about Doug, He never said, you can't do that. And Ethan, this goes right to you. My first Sunday here, I have all the kids out back and we're playing a game, and I look up and there's like 6 guys on the roof. Brian may or may not have been one of them. And I didn't know the building. I didn't know how they got up on the roof, and they wouldn't tell me. So I'm trying to be nice. I asked them to come down. Monday morning, I get into work, and Doug just comes in and sits down in my office. He goes, well, I understand some guys were up on the roof yesterday. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I've been here a week and I'm in trouble. And he's like, it's probably not the best thing for them to be up on the roof. And I said, what? And he goes, well, what did they do? I said, well, I think they had water balloons or something, and were throwing water balloons at people. It was no big deal. Nothing got broken. But Doug didn't freak out. And when you're the youth guy and you have your pastors, your bosses, 3 kids in the youth group, that's scary because you don't want to mess it up. And even when I did mess up, he never hit me over the head with it. He was just calm and let me do my thing. And that is, as someone who does what I do for a living, having a pastor who lets you be who you are is the most valuable thing you can ever ask for. He never told me no. As dumb as I got sometimes, he never said, oh, I think that's a horrible idea. He said, well, let's go for it and see what happens. Okay. It was an absolute pleasure working for Doug. There were tough times here while we were all together, and Doug held us together really, really well. A lot of things that you all didn't see, we were able to keep a good face going because Doug led us really, really well. Personally, he was awesome for us. For Julie and I, couldn't ask for more from a pastor. And I can say this, Doug, leaving here is hard. It really is. There are days I'm over it, then there's days where I'm like, oh, Beulah will be so good today. And that's a compliment to you all. And it's awesome to be able to be a former and be asked to come back. That's so great. This is still, look at me. In a lot of ways, this is still home. And I'm a Browns fan. And a big part of why it's home is all of you, obviously, but really it's Doug. Really was home for us. So, thank you. I love you. Who's next? I love you.
That's what I wanted to get across because I remember Pastor Doug always saying, hold the mic up, look up, don't look down. I just wanted to share a brief experience when my lovely wife and I were having counseling, and Doug did a super job in the counseling, and he covered all the details, all the spiritual details. And I remember saying, well, there's one more thing that we have to decide. And I turned to Doug and I said, we have to decide how many children we want to have. and he looked at us with a stare that I'll never forget. Thanks, Doug. Thanks for what you
Okay.
All the way down there.
Jason? I was sitting here trying to decide whether to say anything or not. All the things that have been said. Is this on? Yeah. All the things that have been said about how wonderful Tanya and Doug have been for the youth. I want to thank them for what they've done for us older folks, because we're still growing and learning and loving the Lord. And so I thank them for what they've done for us. And I just thought maybe since we can't have the Von Trapp family come back, maybe the Von Marshall family could come back. going to be winding it down soon, but I would like to remind you that if you've not had a chance to put any money in your bread basket, please do so to help defray the cost of this. Make a donation. It'd be lovely. Also, if you've brought a card today for Tanya and Doug, there is a basket here on the stage in which you may put it. They will get them later. And you still get to talk to Stacy Atherson before you get to talk too much.
Thank you, Ruth. Ecclesiastes tells us there is a time and season for everything under the sun. Doug, when I think of your season here at Beulah, several things come to mind. I think of your relationships and how important the people of Beulah are to you and you to them. I think of the youth and the youth leadership team that you've really set up for ministry here at Beulah. I think of the sermons that were never boring, always taught us something, and usually dramatic in some way. I think of the music ministry with Tanya, and really what a wonderful witness that is for our youth. I think of you caring for the Beulah flock, and I think of the Sunday school class model that you implemented and is still really going strong. Doug, I think you'll be remembered as really a very beloved pastor here at Beulah. And on behalf of the congregation, the session, and the staff, I'd like to present you and Tanya with our gifts. God bless you.
Thank you.
If you'd like to say a word or two.
Okay.
I was afraid of this, but
I got to prepare what I say. I want to know who was it that went through my computer and looked at some of those pictures. I don't really know. But some of those are off my computer, so someone has access to our computers here. One of the ones that was on there, what makes me know that is the one that was on there of a youth group in my first church that I got off the internet. So I don't, it might have been on Facebook too. I suppose that's true. So, but this has been a great memory, a great time. I gotta say, as I think of this church, we certainly know how to eat. And we do it well. From meals like this, that are just a fantastic time, to the every Sunday of cookies. And I will confess, I have raided the freezer for cookies a few times. One of the things that's hard in a church like this is to keep a balanced diet. It isn't easy in a place like this to keep your weight down the way you want. But I read an article a few months ago that really has helped. It's a way to keep a balanced diet, and they talked about making sure you fill your plate with all sorts of colors, reds and greens and yellows. And if you do that, they say it'll be a healthy diet. So I ate a whole bowl full of M&Ms the other night. As all of you have commented, and it's been very clear, my wife is probably my strongest asset. I've appreciated, she does so much, and it's wonderful to have the pastor, or for a pastor to have such a great support. One pastor was very fortunate as well. He went to the church one day, and while he was there, he was working for several hours, and then when he went to leave, he did, one of the, was it Macarena or whatever, looking for the keys. Could not find his keys. And then he realized what he had done. He left the keys in the ignition of the car. And his wife, for years, had been telling him not to do that because someone would steal the car. So he went out to the parking lot. No car. He thought, oh no. So he called the police first. Hey, someone's stolen my car from the church parking lot, blah, 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 blah. He filed a report. And then he had to make the call to his wife. Honey, he always used honey when Bad. Honey, I hate to tell you this, but I left the keys in the car and it was stolen. There was a long silence. Finally, she said, you know, I drove you to church and dropped you off. So he both felt horrible and breathed a sigh of relief and said, oh, okay, could you come get me? She said, yeah, as soon as I convinced the police that I didn't steal your car. So, I do thank you for being a wonderful wife and all that she has done. We have laughed a lot. We've cried a lot. We've struggled. We've celebrated. We've been family. I mean, that's what it is. We're family. We fight and we love. And that's been good. We've lost some people, gone through some very, very painful deaths. We've had people leave us because they were angry and upset. All the things that are part of life. I would like to suggest that through it all, God has been very good. I'm so thrilled that you put that little clip in my sermon a couple weeks ago on there, because it is all about God's grace and what He has done. God has been faithful. God has been present. Through it all, God has been proclaimed and worshipped here. Through the good and the bad, God's grace and God's glory have been known. Even in the mess, there is a sense of the holiness. I thought about sharing with you 2 weeks ago when I preached on grace something that I'm going to tell you now. I appreciate the comments that you have given on how I have helped you over the years. But I need you to know how much you have helped me in my own life and faith. I've done what I could in the teaching, preaching, and pastoral care, and I truly believe that it's been very obvious how others have grown, but I've grown as well. Not only as a pastor, I think I've grown a lot as a pastor here. Not just from the doctorate, but just from being with you for the last 9.5 years. But what I want to tell you is that there's a story a few of you know a little bit about, but I haven't ever shared with you. Nine and a half years ago, I was a broken man. I was pastor at a church in Ohio. It didn't work out. And before I had a new job, I resigned that position. Scared to death that my ministry was over. Afraid. I mean, you don't walk away from a church until you have another one. And I did, because it was miserable over there. I won't go into all the details of that, but it wasn't a good fit. So I resigned that job, and for about 8 to 10 months, had no job. And then there was, I started looking, did a career survey type of thing, and they said, yeah, you're still called to ministry. They didn't think I was going to still feel called to ministry, but I did. I would have done anything else if I could have felt God was leading me, but no, God said, I want you still in ministry. So I put out my resume, and this place called Beulah contacted me, which is interesting because when we left Colorado, I, at the time, remember thinking, I don't know what it is about Pittsburgh, but there's something about Pittsburgh. And it wasn't time for me to get here. But we did, just with a little delay, through Ohio. And the Associate Pastor Nominating Committee met with me. Thanks to those of you who were on that. And those of you who were on that committee who took a chance on someone who felt literally like he had failed. and was a failure. So I came here. I'm a pretty good actor, I think, because you probably didn't know, but I was scared to death. I had no confidence at that point, and you loved me. You accepted me. You welcomed me. You forgave me when I fell short. You embraced me and encouraged me. You prayed for me. You listened to my sermons. You laughed at my jokes. You loved me. So what I simply want to say to you is thank you. You've meant, as much as I've hopefully given you grace, you've given me grace beyond compare. Thank you.
Down, we're not going to go too far. I want to thank you so much for all you've shared and all you've given and all we've been able to give to you. But the most important point is that we're here because of the Lord.
Amen.
So, to close, I'd like us to join hands and sing the doxology.
Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures here below. Praise Him above the heavenly host. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
Thank you. May you all have a wonderful day and make it a better.